We're going to go through the many features and menu items available when working in production analysis. From reporting tools, let's go to production analysis and then analysis. And we're going to open up the production analysis we created when setting up production analysis. When your production analysis loads, you have a quick access toolbar across the top. The first icon takes you to your properties, which is where we did our setup of the analysis. And the second button reloads. So if you make any changes in here, or you go and drill down on one of these cells, make some changes, enter a new transaction, and you had analysis open, the reload is going to, again, recapture all of the current transaction activity and calculations. You have some options on how you want the ribbon displayed. You can click this little arrow in the far right, and that will collapse it, making more area available in your grid. And you can also do a right click and show your quick access toolbar below the ribbon. So if you like it down here, that's just a right click option. And to set that back again, you just switch it back to the top. Under your file menu is where you will go to open if you want to open up a different analysis, or go to new to create a new one. Save as is available to make a copy of an analysis if you make changes in your row descriptions or your columns that you're working with and you want to save that customization. Then you can create, do a save as to create a copy of that. Properties is the same as using your quick access as well as the reload. And then we have some different options for page setup. Page setup allows you to make some adjustments to your page so that it will fit when you are printing. It's going to print the row titles and the column heading and one segment per page. So if you find that all of the columns in your segment do not fit, then you can use your page setup to make some adjustments, or there are some other adjustments that I'll show you in a little bit also. But in the page setup, you can do a scaling of less than 100 if you need to make it narrower, or if you have more room and you want to expand it, it can be above 100, or a fit to page. You can go to margins as well and put less width on the margins. And the header footer allows you to do a custom header footer and make some adjustments to what you want on the heading of your page. All of those will be accessed if you go to preview it and print it from there, which is another option. You can do a print spreadsheet that goes directly to your printer and will give you a print dialog box of what printer you want to choose and how many copies. Or the preview spreadsheet will let you see what it's going to look like, and this will tell you if some of the columns are going to get chopped off, and then you'll know you'll need to make some adjustments to get that to fit. From the preview screen, you can also export to a different file format or email with a different file format, and you have your different formats here. You can also export either to Excel, and that'll bring up a file explorer to choose where you want to save that report to and the name of it, and you can also export to a PDF file. There are some print map options here also. We're going to address those when we do our session on working with production analysis maps, but these are options to print your map, preview map, and export. And then a close would close out of production analysis. From our analysis menu, there are several options for working within these the spreadsheet. Collapse will collapse everything down to the account type level, and expand all expands everything based on what your display levels were selected in your properties. There are some different sections in your production analysis. The performance measures that were selected are up at the top. And down at the bottom is a section for calculations if you've included calculations, notes, so you can make notes on each one of your segments if you want, That gray says enter note here, and if we take that out, then we can enter if we have some notes on this particular detail, like if it was wet spring or whatever you want there. And then there's the selections. If you have set some filters on this production analysis, like we set a filter for 2018, and that would display down here. If you didn't have any filters, you won't see a selections section. And if you don't add any calculations, you won't see a calculations section. But you can also hide those. From our display section, if we don't want to see our performance measures up at the top, we can uncheck that and it'll collapse. Or if we don't want to see one of the sections down at the bottom, like selections, we can collapse that. Display totals, I'm going to move this up a bit. And when we're in display totals, you can see right now we're seeing totals for the account and the account category and the account type. And we can choose not to see that if we want. We can roll that up and hide those totals. Go ahead and turn those back on. And the display level, we can also select if we want to see everything in an account category, and that will collapse it down to account category, and as well as any one of those other selections. Calculations takes you to the calculation screen where you can add new calculations or edit the existing calculations, and we're going to go through that in a separate session of how to add formulas in there and how they work. And then there are some view options. So under view is a headings, and if we click headings, that will put spreadsheet type headings with your letters across the top and numbers at the bottom. When you are in the headings, that allows you to adjust columns. So I could take these columns and move them narrower if I wanted to, like that. Once I get those columns where I want, and I can also do that with my rows. So I could collapse this blank row right here if I wanted to, or if I wanted this one a little bit less, I can squish that up. So it's another way to make some adjustments in your grid, which will give you more space when you're going to print or export. Once you make your changes in your headings, you can uncheck that again and get rid of that heading bar across the top. And another way that you can do adjustments is a right click. So if I right click in any one of these cells, I get some options here of set column width. If I choose set column width from the right click, if I make an adjustment here, right now it's at 231. If I want to make that a little bigger because it's almost not wide enough, then I can do a 240, and it will adjust this column and all columns in every segment of that column type. Or in this one, I might want to make it a little narrower, so I might want to go 200, and that makes that narrower all the way across. So now as I do these adjustments, my columns might fit when I go to page setup and want all of my columns to be printing on one page. The other option is on a right click. If we are in one of these cells, we can go to set number format. So all of these different calculations have decimal places, and we can make that a less decimal places if we want in order to make that column width a little bit less. And you can see there that it adjusted it to 1 decimal instead of the 3. Now back to our file options across the top. There's also a grid line. So if you want to hide the grid lines, we can uncheck grid lines. The show hide columns, right now we have these 5 columns that were selected in our properties. If we're working in the analysis and we don't need to see perhaps the rate per acre, we can uncheck that. That takes that off on all the segments, and now as you scroll across, the scroll bar at the bottom is scrolling with the segments. Notice that our row titles are froze over here, so you're always knowing what row title you're on, but the segments are scrolling. And up at the top, our performance measures are froze, but our different row titles are moving. Over at the left, you can also collapse and expand with your little icons. So I could expand all of these if I wanted to, but some of them I might want to leave or collapse, I'm sorry. I can collapse those and I can leave these expanded if I want to see the detail under some sections, but not all of them. Whatever settings you do here is what's going to get used when you do your printing or exporting. Then we have another section for edit, and in the edit, it is addressing what if scenarios. So you also have the ability to change values in your different cells. But you have to be in the expanded mode, so you're at the lowest level of any row that you're including here. But if I wanted to change the value of the dollars, let's say, well, let's scroll over. Now I change the dollars in here, I could change this and see what would happen if I do some different scenarios here. When I'm in transaction amounts, I can change my amount or my quantity 1. And then each one of the performances that you selected are also going to be available under edit. So if I wanted to change my dollars per acre, I'd have to be in my dollars per acre. Notice that if I click here, I can't change anything under dollar per bushel. But now if I go to dollar per acre, I can change my dollar per acre. And as I change things here, it's going to change other columns that are part of that calculation. So when I change the dollars per acre, change that one more time, it changed my amount right here under the amount column and my dollars per bushel. So those are different things that in working with production analysis, you can do some scenarios of what would happen if I did this, what would happen if I did that. You can also change your performance values up at the top. So if I wanted to change my bushels that I thought it could have produced, I can change that and see what that would do to my calculations. Changing that is going to change my dollars per bushel calculation right here. If you do these changes and you decide that you want to get back to what it was originally, then you just need to go up to reload, and that reloads back to current calculations and transaction activity. One of the other important things you can do in production analysis is drill down to the activity. So if I hover over a cell that I want to see where that activity came from, I can right click and my menu comes up and go to Review Transactions. Review Transactions brings up Transaction Search, and you'll want to probably set the format definition of what details you want to be able to see when you're doing the drill down. So right now I am in extended detail with break on transaction. If you were in summary, let's spread this out a little bit. If this was summary and you want to switch what the default format definition is, so you get the detail you want to see when you're drilling down, click your save icon to the right of that and you should switch to your format that you want first. I was already on it. So if you were in summary, switch to a different format definition. Then click your save button and click your box set as default definition. Then the next time that you come into this drill down, it will be defaulting to the definition that you want rather than having to switch it. Once you look at your transaction activity, and again, like in search, you can drill down on that transaction, make any changes if you needed to, and click OK to bring it back to your analysis. The other options that are available in working with an analysis is the map features. So there is another session on working with the production analysis maps, but if we just take a quick peek at that, the production details that were included in this production analysis retrieve the maps that are being stored in those different production center details, and they will include a label. The label that you see there can be changed from your shape title, and the legend that's being used can also be changed, as well as the tooltips that come up when you hover over that different production detail. And you can add other pieces of information, and we're going to go through those different features on working with production analysis maps.